To begin with, citing Justice Remsai's pronouncements and that of Domelovo do not in any way undermine the fight against corruption that we have waged. To begin with, if the Deputy Attorney General says, oh, the mere fact that you've acquired land at what is perceived to be a ridiculously low price does not in itself constitute a crime or an act of corruption, that is trite knowledge. Moro, it is trite knowledge. The mere act itself on the surface won't constitute a crime. But if it is investigated and found that the actors involved deliberately compromised their position and gave the land to you because of political connection, and that the land was valued at a certain price but was sold to you at a knockdown rate due to political considerations, that is where the crime will be. So that is why it requires investigation. So if tomorrow we woke up and learned that you bought some government property around Metro TV here for 10,000 Ghana cedis, that in itself doesn't mean that you've committed a crime. But if we find that the officer in charge knew that this land was $1 million, and because you are his friend or his crony, he gave it to you at 10,000, then there's an issue to investigate. So that the official who did that will be held liable for the action. That is essentially what the Deputy Attorney General says. And how does this detract from the fight against corruption? Again, I listened to the program on Joy News where Mr. Domelovo spoke. And in fact, the exact quotation has been published on Manjaro Online. So anybody interested can read. What he said was that from the very onset, everybody knew that the oral committee set up by President Mahama, which in any event was set up before President Mahama took office, and therefore could not have had any legal mandate anyway to do any prosecution or even investigation, was set up just to collate information from the people of Ghana or anybody who had it and process same for the use of the Attorney General once he is appointed. In fact, I put out that statement. Again, anybody who goes to my Facebook wall or Twitter page can download this statement and read it. It was very, very clear. In fact, the exact description I used was that it was a preparatory team. And to the extent that they didn't have any legal mandate, on what basis were they going to conduct investigations? So their mandate was very clear. Nobody who is being truthful could have been in doubt what the remit of their work was. It was said that if you, Moro, had evidence that Paul had engaged in any act of corruption, bring it. If you have what you believe to be evidence, add it. It will be sifted through, and then what is deemed to be workable will be then given to the Attorney General once he takes office. That is precisely what happens. So it is entirely possible that people will bring information that you can consider as garbage or rubbish. Yeah. And those people who worked in that committee were in no doubt that that could happen. It is a reason why after they submitted their report, the Attorney General gave it to accredited state agencies to conduct investigations into and find which ones merit further action. There has never been a period where anybody said that the over 2,000 complaints that they receive, all of them could be prosecuted. Nobody can think that way. They whittled it down to about 280 cases. Even then, there's no guarantee that all 280 cases will master scrutiny in court. So, for me, we are splitting hairs over nothing. We are wasting precious time on what is so obvious. But perhaps it is a tactic adopted by those who want to see the fight fail in order to obfuscate the issues and draw us into a discussion of tangential, insignificant matters when the real issues are pending. So Mr. Domelovo has not said anything that invalidates the work of the committee. Indeed, I heard one NPP MP claim that the NPP has been vindicated. How does Mr. Domelovo's statements vindicate you? As we speak, there are several NPP officials who were prominent in the Akufo-Addo government who are standing trial on the basis of the work that Oral did, which has been further investigated to establish clearly the culpability or otherwise of those named in there. So how does that vindicate you? So I think that the NPP are in too much of a hurry to poo-poo what is happening. Of course, you can understand the political motive behind it. They want to douse public interest in this and create a situation where people begin to doubt the efficacy of what is happening. So that can be understood from a political context. But let nobody be in doubt about the seriousness that is being attached to this. You see, Moro, the last time I was here with Paul, I highlighted it. Look, there is no dispute that the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government supervised unprecedented levels of corruption. Sometimes it was palpable. It was clear. that there was corruption going on. And you in the media, on a daily basis, bombarded us with exposés of corruption. At a point, we were just swarmed that one could not, you had hardly finished discussing one corruption allegation before another one is tossed in. And so you could even not tell which one to focus on because there were so many. Because of that, the people of Ghana legitimately demanded action from President Akufo-Addo, who was unwilling to take such action. You could see clear wrongdoing that was not punished. Indeed, in many instances, he himself jumped to the defense of the persons who had been accused of corruption. And so it was clear that nothing was going to be done about that unless and until that government was booted out. Now, any responsible party or candidates who wanted to lead this country needed to respond to that public demand. Because Molo, this is a country where people have actually been shot, tied to the stakes and shot because of corruption. And it was supported. We are talking about the demise of Mrs. Rawlings. In the heydays, there were demands for blood for persons who had engaged in acts that pale into insignificance when compared to what has happened under the NPP. So the Ghanaian people have always demanded action about corruption. He spoke about how corruption was a major issue in the 2000 elections. That, in 2016. And of course, in every election. Of course, in every election. And so was it in 2020, so was it in 2024. So was it under President Akufo in 2008. So was it in 2004 when the Malamisa kickback case emerged. You remember that? President Akufo's Wawa speech, he came under a barrage of criticism for appearing to endorse corruption when he justified the incidence of corruption in his government. So corruption has always been an issue. But have we as a people, has various governments responded to it in a manner that is satisfactory to the people of Ghana? Up until 2024, the people of Ghana thought no. So anybody who wanted to lead this country needed to make a firm commitment to addressing that particular concern. Then came in oral, Operation Recover Our Loot. And President Mama says, look, I have heard the cries of Ghanaians. I, as president, will take steps to ensure that we address this canker of corruption in a manner that is comprehensive, in a manner that makes it a high-risk activity for persons wanting to get into it. So what did he do? It was in a manifesto, captured in there. When he was elected, before he could take over as president formally, he put in place a mechanism to begin work on addressing the issue of corruption under the previous government. So then he set up the oral committee to receive information about acts of corruption and process that information. So it was raw material. Nobody could take that to court to seek conviction unless and until subsequent work had been done to establish firmly whether or not the allegations are true and whether there's basis, there's evidence to support him. That is what happened. When he took over, indeed a ceremony was held where the report of oral was then handed over to the Attorney General. He gave it to the NIB, the police CID, sometimes the National Signals Bureau is involved, sometimes the National Security itself is involved, and the Attorney General's office itself, and then Yoko, to look into these matters. And Moro, they won't tell, I'm sure Paul knows because he has his ears to the ground. Dozens, scores of NPP officials have been invited for questioning. On a daily basis, I get briefings. So they will give you a grade showing who has been called, who has been cautioned, who has been billed. It is not all of them that gain media attention. Perhaps because of the personalities involved. They are not necessarily people who are in the front burner of our politics. So you may not know. But I can tell you, over 80 different people have been interviewed. Some of them have been given bail quietly. Some of them have people standing surety for them. Yes. 80. And more. And it is something that continues to happen. Wow. And let me tell you, all the 280 cases that Ora presented are being looked into. All of them, bar none. So that has been done. There are some that naturally, because of the actors involved and their own attempts to seek support from their base, it gets to the front burner. Because when they are invited or arrested, they mobilize people to come and make noise to demand their release and all. So that one naturally is covered by the media. And then sometimes you in the media get wind of it and so you blow it up, which is okay. But I can assure you that that is happening. Subsequent to this, the Attorney General then carry out detailed scrutiny of the facts of each case and makes a decision as to whether or not it should go to court. That is standard practice. That is what it is. Not everything that comes before the Attorney General or prosecutorial bodies that they take to court, because they in fact, there may yet be instances where there is evidence of wrongdoing, but perhaps the weight of the evidence may be insufficient, because in criminal cases you have to meet a certain high threshold that it must be beyond reasonable doubt. So there are instances where you see that yes, there are questions to be answered. The questions have not been satisfactorily answered. But if you take it to court, you may not get the evidence that is required to secure conviction. So you leave it at that until a time where you get additional evidence. But in many instances, there is hardcore, irrefutable evidence. But this Attorney General is a well-trained, well-heeled, experienced legal practitioner. He himself has represented many people in criminal cases. So he is fully aware of the threshold that must be met and the nuances that go into securing conviction. So because of that, he is doing a thorough job. He is going through the files, the dockets with a fine comb. Indeed, at the briefing, he gave you a list of cases that he has finished investigations on. SkyTrain, mathematical sets, and what have you. He gave a list. It is there. You understand me? But you see, the Attorney General, like myself, is a public official. And therefore, his work is also subject to scrutiny, especially in circumstances where certain quarters of Ghanaian society have sought to criticize him for what they believe to be a slow-paced approach to implementing oral. So it is necessary for him to come out to assure the public, give information about the work he is doing, and also account for the reason why. For instance, he will call Paul, question him, and take him to court. You see, Paul is a citizen of the country. His rights must be protected, like mine and yours. So the moment the Attorney General decides that he will alter Paul's rights or act in ways that limit Paul's rights because he is taking him to court, ostensibly because Paul has committed some offense or the other, he is accountable for that decision. And therefore, the people of Ghana must hear why he is taking such a step. Look, and Paul again is an exposed person. He's traveled the world over. So he knows that in the most liberal democracies in this world, including the United States of America, prosecutors on a daily basis engage the media and put out details of why they are taking some action against people. Indeed, the most recent one that we can cite in terms of its high profile is President Trump himself. He was a former president of the United States. Yet, a prosecutor in New York staged a press conference, announced that he had been indicted. He was taking him to court on the basis of ABCD. Indeed, as far back as 1994, when the O.J. Simpson case broke out, prosecutors faced the public on a daily basis to account for the reason why they were taking some steps. So it is not new, it is not unheard of for an Attorney General or a prosecutor to mount a podium and disclose details of why he is taking people to court. The people of Ghana deserve that. There's nothing wrong with it. Again, Moro, we behave as though court processes in Ghana are secret. Indeed, because of the Akufo-Addo case, I went to court many times. Everything that is taken to court is actually public information. It just may be that you in the media are not interested in, so you don't highlight some of them. But in the more high-profile ones, you go to court and in fact you report. In some instances, the proceedings are telecast live. So every evidence, every accusation, every detail of the case is in the public domain. Indeed, you can apply to the court for proceedings to be given to you. And if the court reviews it and finds that there is basis for your demand, they will give it to you, which you will then publish. The statements of offense, they are published. Why? Govt, when he was Attorney General, whenever he charged somebody in court, the charge sheet was made public. He published it. And the charge sheet is no different from what the Attorney General has spoken about in his media encounters. So why are we behaving that as if the Attorney General has done anything that is untoward? As if he's done something that we've not heard before? Why? In the Akufo-Addo case, at a certain point, the judge ordered that the proceedings be telecast live because he wanted transparency. And they were telecast live. People watched it. The 2012 election petition, the cameras were taken into the courts. In the 2021 too, the cameras were taken to the court. So we heard and saw everything that was discussed. So why are we behaving as though the Attorney General coming to tell us what he is taking to court, which will become public information anyway, is such a travesty of justice? Again, the Attorney General cannot convict anybody. If the Attorney General says, Moro, you have stolen 2,000 Ghana cedis. And now when you stole the money, you took it to Metro TV Rural Bank to save in your account. And that on a particular day, you went to take that money to go and purchase a car. That in itself does not convict you. It is the reason why after the Attorney General's press conference, Hanan is not in prison. Hanan will have his day. The Attorney General said today, Friday, 24th October, 2025, I'm going to charge Hanan, his wife, and 2 others for the offenses that I have stated. He will be given his day in court. Hanan will be given every opportunity to present evidence to show that what the Attorney General is saying has no merit, and therefore the court should throw it out. That is what has happened in every case that has been taken to court. So I'm not sure why people think that if the Attorney General comes out to brief the public, he has committed an offense. Justice Louise Bandes said it. That sunlight is the best disinfectant. Right. If the Attorney General, a public official, paid with taxes that you and I pay, is doing his work, and he feels that he's got to a point where he needs to keep the public informed, there's nothing wrong with it. The Government Accountability Series has been set up for all government officials who have anything to say about their work, to the extent that it is in the public interest, can come and do so. The Attorney General is a public official, mind you. Yes, in fact, in his case, his role is specifically defined in the Constitution. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, he is perhaps the only official whose job description is captured clearly in the Constitution. And often he is the only official whose job description is tied to his professional training. So it is a very important office. And I see no reason why the Attorney General cannot brief the people. But you see, it is understandable why the NPP will rail against this, and the likes of who belong to the NPP will rail against this. Because somehow they believe that these disclosures tend to vindicate the concerns that the people of Ghana had, for which reason they booted them out of office. They are not happy that the people of Ghana are getting to know the kind of wrongdoings that happened under them. Well, see, some of the issues are mind-boggling, and you wonder what exactly it was that President Akufo-Addo was doing as president.